The President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Ρομπέρτα Μετσόλα, is with us today. Welcome, Mrs. President. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. Absolutely. And let me begin with that. Jens Stoltenberg said that we live in a more dangerous and unpredictable world than before. And several European leaders share this view. What's your opinion? Is this the beginning of a new Cold War in Europe?
Well, what is definitely true and what I agree with Jens Stoltenberg on is that we can never go back to a world that was before the 24th of February, before the most brutal invasion by Russia, unprovoked, unnecessary, into Ukraine. What was planned, I think, by Putin, and the gross miscalculation that he made is that he would take Kiev in 5 days, has had the consequence not only that the European Union and the world has been so resolute in its unity in fighting back and helping Ukraine, but also, as we saw, also an increase in the numbers of members of the NATO alliance with the joining of Sweden and Finland. And that is not to be underestimated. That is also not to show that when Europe is called to act in the most geopolitical, strategic and security way, it does.
Europe has three challenges ahead: energy, economy and defense. How will the European Union cope with those issues, and how will the citizens be affected?
Well, I would start with the citizens. All decisions that we take, and we are here in the European Parliament, elected by the European citizens, is that we have to not only explain them, but we need to make sure that the economic impact that our economies are going to feel over the next few months, a very difficult few months ahead, I must say, need to be not only explained, but cushioned somehow. And that means that government leaders, together with national parliaments and the European Parliament, need to look at the extent or otherwise of intervention, of flexibility, of caps, as some countries are pushing, more incentives into the market, etc. On energy has always been political. We, I think, made the mistake of looking away for too long when our countries, especially those with the borders with Russia, have been cautioning us against a very unpredictable autocratic neighbor that could at any one moment decide to liberate countries simply on the decision of one person, as though Europe was his geopolitical chessboard, that he could do what he liked with it. And on that, I think we have, let's say, used this crisis and difficulty as a catalyst in order to push, and this is what the Parliament is pushing, for a real European energy union, which would make sure that we are more interdependent and that we are not at the behest of the blackmailing of one unfriendly neighbor. With regards to the economy, yes, we need to also look at our societies, the biggest impact that our citizens are going to feel. And when we were already taking decisions with unprecedented unity and with more Europe during the COVID pandemic, we have been managing also to take them in this current economic uncertain situation. It will not be easy, but I think we are ready to lead in a very, very difficult and challenging time.
Mrs. Metsola, two European countries, Sweden and Finland, had to make a deal with Turkey in order to join NATO. President Erdogan insists that Finland and Sweden extradite dozens of people Turkey has identified as alleged terrorists. Is that a sacrifice of democracy in favor of defense?
Well,
and is this acceptable in the European Union?
I would say, first of all, in the European Parliament, what we are calling for is a proper defense policy. What does that mean? Not something that competes with NATO, but complements. We have a treaty structure that would protect all member states and make sure that they play by the same rules. Why do I say play by the same rules? Because even at the moment when we are discussing the implementation of the sanctions that have been imposed against Russia and Putin's regime, we expect every single country that is an ally, that we work with, whether from a neighborhood perspective or also from an economic perspective, to also observe the same rules and abide by the same packages. With regards to the decision of Finland and Sweden to enter the NATO alliance, which was welcomed also by this Parliament, many member states, this is also something that would need to be asked of NATO. But what we would say in this situation is that we expect all countries with which we have political, economic, trade relations of making sure that all the rules are followed and human rights are protected.
Do you see any chance that we will have an arms embargo to Turkey? Do you think that the EU should toughen its stance towards Ankara?
Well, this was discussed in a couple of meetings that I was present in, also at national and prime minister's level. It is also something that would need to be taken within the foreign affairs perspective, also something that we are looking at in the next steps. I would not say that the European Parliament has a specific position on that, also from a competence perspective, but we have had as broad a debate as possible here. And what we want is everybody to play by the rules, no exception.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For accepting this interview. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for inviting me.